Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about how to take all of these wonderful ideas you've heard about and you've learned about and make them into a reality. Chance favors the connected mind. This is a quote from Where Good Ideas Come From by Steven Johnson. In his short video animation, Johnson argues that ideas start from a very long process. They start off as what he calls hunches in the back of our minds. Now, these hunches need time to develop, as well as a space in which they can collide with other hunches in order to form an idea that is usable. Because of this, he argues, the creation of good ideas is fostered by spaces in which people are encouraged to share their thoughts, such as the coffee house in the Age of Enlightenment. Now, there are many lessons to be learned from Johnson's video, but to me, the most valuable one is that ideas cannot be formed independently. And if we consider this concept, then we must realize the day and age we currently live in is an ideal one for the creation of good ideas. Instead of a physical coffee house for people to share their thoughts, we have the internet, a practically inexhaustible source of mediums by which people can share their thoughts. A perfect example of this is TED, whose motto is literally, ideas worth spreading. Because of this, it seemed very fitting for me to share my idea about ideas in the form of a TED Talk. But really, what is my idea about ideas? My idea about ideas is that we can use our highly connected world to not only come up with and share ideas, but also to make them happen. TED gives us such a powerful tool to propel our thoughts through a sea of viewers, but it doesn't always give us the tools we need to make them happen. It's sad to see such wonderful things pop up and be discussed, only to be forgotten. Because of this, I'd like to share my own personal perspective as well as story about it. Now, my story starts with two video games, Warcraft 3 by Blizzard Entertainment and Dota 2 by Valve Corporation. Now, Warcraft 3 was released in 2002, and it was a massive hit. Its success can be attributed to the fact that it not only had a rich storyline and compelling gameplay, but also a vibrant modding community. Now, a mod, or a custom game mode, is a modification of a game, making it work in different ways. You take a game and you add new features, new levels, new monsters. You make it your own. A well-developed mod is basically its own game, just running within an already existing one. Now, there had been many of these mods for Warcraft 3, but the most popular one by far had been Defense of the Ancients, or Dota for short. Dota became so popular that Valve, a billion-dollar company, bought out the rights to it and made it to its own standalone game, Dota 2. Dota 2 quickly gained popularity and is now one of the most popular PC games of all time, boasting millions of players as well as an annual tournament, with the latest one having a prize pool of over $18 million. Now, I personally had played a lot of Warcraft 3 in my childhood, especially the mods. And so when Dota 2 was released, I naturally flocked to it. And since Dota had originated from a mod, it felt almost inevitable that eventually Valve would implement its own modding framework into Dota 2. I remember getting a message from a friend of mine who also played the game in December of 2013, telling me to join this internet chat because these people had been poking around in the files and they had found something. Now, I'll be honest, when he first said that to me, I thought it sounded pretty shady, but I checked it out, and it turned out what they had actually found was a rudimentary mod for Dota 2 created by Valve. When I first joined the channel, they were all trying to see if they could understand how it worked by changing something here and there, and if they could create something original. This really excited me, and so I started doing the same. Now, the chat was running amok with wonderful ideas. Countless ideas surfacing are inevitable when you arm passionate, creative people with the tools to create. However, choosing the first thing you want to do when you're suddenly given the awesome power to take your favorite game and make it your own is a very hard thing to do. However, after some basic experimentation, I eventually decided I would recreate what had been my favorite Warcraft 3 mod, Pudge Wars. Now, Pudge Wars was a simple game. You had two teams of 5 players each on the opposite ends of a map, and this map was bounded in the middle by an uncrossable river. The objective of each team was to throw hooks towards the other side of the river and pull their enemies towards them. Now, I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, but it gives you an idea. And so, as I began to work on this, I eventually realized there was someone else in the same chat working on the same project. I didn't know this guy, but we started talking about it. We shared some thoughts, some ideas, some of our favorite moments in the game, and we decided we would work together. At the time, I had no idea, but this was the start of something incredibly big. I'd like to take a big jump forward in the story now to the present. Pudge Wars for Dota 2, which started as a fun little experiment with some basic tools, is now a fully fledged Dota 2 custom game mode. In this time, it has gained immense popularity and is currently sitting on over 3,250,000 downloads. My partner and I have been featured on countless gaming websites, been contacted directly by Valve, and even interviewed by the biggest gaming magazine in the UK. Pudge Wars for Dota 2 has been played by several professional players on their personal live streams, as well as on tournament live streams, both with tens of thousands of concurrent viewers. Pudge Wars for Dota 2 is one of the most popular Dota 2 mods of all time. And it all started with two ideas colliding in an instant. It is clear to me that none of it could have ever been done without teamwork. In fact, as Pudge Wars grew, so did the team my partner and I worked with. What started as 2 people working together suddenly grew to a team of 6 people from all around the world, ranging from countries such as Poland to Sweden to even New Zealand. Each time someone joined our project, their ideas collided with our own to form one even bigger than itself. And as a result, the project grew. Now, the point that I would like to make from all this is that the internet can be an immensely valuable resource when attempting to connect people with similar interests and ideas. Let me explain it visually. I'd like everyone in their head to picture a bubble, similar to the one on the screen. Now make that bubble very big, trust me. In that bubble, begin placing everyone you know in your day-to-day life. People like your friends, your family, your coworkers, your students, your teachers, your mailman, everybody. Now this bubble is the scope of people you're exposed to on a daily basis. We've made it clear at this point that an idea cannot come to fruition on its own. So it's safe to say the first step in making your idea happen is to find someone to work with. While your bubble may be massive, this can be a surprisingly difficult thing to do. In my case, for instance, I would have to narrow down my bubble to people I knew who play Dota 2. From there, I would have to narrow it down to people who also had an interest in programming. And from there, I would have to narrow it down even further to find someone with a similar enough idea to work with. Suddenly, it becomes a pretty tall order to find one person to work with, not to mention an entire team of 6 different people. So this is where the sheer power of the internet comes in. Instead of looking for people in my bubble who met a certain criteria, I could look for a bubble composed of exclusively people meeting that criteria. And without realizing it, that's precisely what I'd done with the shady internet chat. Suddenly, the playing field became narrowed down entirely to people with an interest in Dota 2 and an interest in programming. And all that was left to do was to find someone to work with. This to me is an interesting concept because each of those people in that chat had their own personal bubbles. But through the internet, we're able to come together and form a virtual bubble. I like to picture it with the graphic on the screen. Several large bubbles with straws or tunnels running out of them, converging in the middle to form one virtual bubble. Now this virtual bubble is the modern day coffee house, referring back to Johnson's perspective. It is the location where the coalition of ideas can happen as efficiently as possible. Ideas aren't tied to any physical location anymore, but rather to wherever they can catch and spread like wildfire. We have this amazing power, and we need to start taking advantage of it. If you have an idea, then chase it. Don't just share it, make it happen. Find someone else around the world and make a bridge with them. After all, chance favors the connected mind. Thank you.